And I too have been cosplaying for about 10 years and started right after I went to New York Comic Con for the first time and just like flipped out when I saw everybody in costumes and like really wanted to be part of it. So I went home and made my first costume, and here I am, still cosplaying 10 years later.
Nice. Did you make your first cosplay that year or the following year?
I made it for the following year out of duct tape because I didn't know how to sew, and I also made my fiance's costume too out of cardboard and duct tape because again, no sewing.
Awesome. Yeah, I did the same thing. Deuce.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Harry. I am originally from Baltimore, and I live now in Prince George's County. And I'm an information coordinator by day, and when I'm not doing that, I'm a photographer as well as a cosplayer. Um, my wife Gina, who is not on the call, is pretty much my go-to person when it comes making my cosplay. She's also a graphics designer, so she does a lot of amazing things. And we both got into cosplay because it's a great way to just be somebody else for a weekend, really enjoy the vibe. We're both geeks and we really enjoy the atmosphere. And I pretty much took up photography because I wanted to make sure that we were well represented in a space where you don't see a lot of representation from people of color.
Lovey.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lovie Lee. I've been cosplaying for now the last 4 years. My first official cosplay. So, I used to dress up for Halloween and things of that nature, but my first official cosplay was New York Comic Con 2017. And I pretty much kind of ran with it ever since. It was one of those things where Black Panther got introduced into the MCU, and I was like, okay, at this point, I kind of can't keep putting it off. By day, I am an IT systems engineer. That's been a hobby of mine. Ultimately, I turned it into a career. And nowadays, I just do a lot to try and help out the community, not just in the cosplay community, but also in the Black community, trying to lead by example because nowadays, lack leadership. So a lot of the younger generation these days, they really need people like ourselves that are older to kind of help guide them and see what their opportunities are and kind of help them figure out what it is that they want to do to move on with their future. So I've been doing a lot of initiatives like that.
Nice. I think you guys started to answer this, but I wanted to get into why you got into cosplay. Why do you love it? What initially drew you to it, and what keeps you doing it? What inspires you to keep cosplaying or keep creating new cosplays? Go ahead, Dred.
I think a large reason why we do it because for us it's twofold. One is seeing a lot of these characters brought to life. Like I have to say, Lovey, your Black Panther was one of the most amazing Black Panthers that I've seen. And then another big thing too is to inspire, because what we do as cosplayers is not only we bring these characters to life, but we are inspiring others. There are so many people out there who I've talked to over the years that didn't want to cosplay or was hesitant to cosplay because they wasn't sure of, well, how would it be taken, how would I look, or especially if I'm doing a character that's a predominantly white character, how do I put a spin on it so that way I'm not seen as the Black version of. And when people see us doing what we do with cosplay and bringing some of those characters to life, then hopefully that spark will click onto them. Like, regardless of my height, my size, my color, my whatever, even my disability, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to have fun doing it.
Makes sense.
If you don't mind, if I can kind of jump in off of that. So I noticed that Deuce was mentioning at the end about individuals with disabilities. So what most people actually don't know about me is I actually have a major injury in my lower lumbar. So like I have what they call like a pinched nerve in the lower lumbar, degenerating disc, and all of that. So multiple times I've actually had to go through years of therapy just to get to walking. And so when I'm personally cosplaying, you know, it's not just I'm portraying the character, but when I go into the full role and being whoever that character is that I'm dressed up as, and interacting with these kids and some of these younger youth, and they're looking up to me like I'm an inspiration to them. What they don't seem to realize is they're actually giving me the inspiration to continue to do what I'm doing, regardless of what my capabilities may be.
Nice. We have one good a question in the chat, and it's what exactly is cosplay? And I know I have my own thoughts about it and how it's different from like a Halloween costume, for example. Um,
Oh,
guys, jump in first.
Cosplay is I to me cosplay is just taking something that you're really passionate about and like a character, or it can be an art, something that was drawn that you love the way it looks, and bringing it to life and becoming that character in whatever way means to you. So you can hop into those shoes and make everything from scratch. You can purchase costume pieces off of Amazon, put it together. You can take bits and pieces from your closet. And as long as you put that on and have fun and have your passion behind it, that's cosplay. So it's different from like a Halloween costume in that I guess Halloween is a specific holiday and you're going to do that one thing, but cosplay is really like almost becoming the character, um, and just bringing them to a bigger place in the world where people can relate to the character in person and get excited about it. And it's just a really fun feeling to become something that you see and are really passionate about.
Yeah, great. I know there's definitely like a bit of embodiment that goes into it. That's definitely different from just like a Halloween costume or anything like that. It's something that you're passionate about or that you're connected to usually.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so next question, what are you guys excited to portray next? Do you have any characters that you're working on at the moment? We're still deciding if we're going to cons, which cons we're going to next. So what are you guys working on? Go ahead, Dredden and Lovey.
okay. So at present, again with help of my wife, we have. Well, I don't even want to go into what she's doing because hers is still top secret for now. But my character is Dr. Voodoo, and the reason why I picked that character because I thought I wanted to do Doctor Strange, and I really said to myself, "Huh, how would the black version?" I said, "You know what? There's a black version. There's Doctor Voodoo because Doctor Voodoo was a character that also had the Aya Agamotto and had a nice long run in the comics with that. So I said, why not? It's not a character that's done often, and we had it assembled since last year. I finally got some pictures of it a couple of months ago, and I'm really excited about the con season because I'm ready to kind of bring this character out.
Nice.
So this is kind of secret, kind of top secret. So just kind of bleep this out. um, Normally I'm known for cosplaying Marvel characters. You know, I'm definitely a big Marvel fan. However, I always have liked DC Comics. So more recently, within the last year or so, I came up with the idea that I wanted to cosplay as Val Zod. But in doing a lot of research, I was looking at a lot of the costumes and the way that people were making their Valzad suits. And I decided to think, what if Valzad was in the DCU, but still kind of had that traditional comic book look to him at the same time? So I have the suit, is pretty much almost done. I had to make some minor adjustments. Right now, I just got to get some hands to help me put on all my emblems and trimmings and things of that nature. But it's definitely a work of art, and it's going to be the first of its kind. I'm looking forward to bringing that out.
Nice.
Lovey, if you need any help, give Gina a call.
We'll definitely link up afterwards.
Nice.
I have a few projects I'm working on right now. Two of them are projects that were started before the pandemic happened, and I never got a chance to finish. It's a goddess, like a Greek goddess version of Sailor Pluto from Sailor Moon universe. And I finished all of the armor like pieces for it, but the dress I was in the middle of making and the pandemic happened and never got a chance to really finish it. And then I have an original character that I had started. She's like kind of this raven goddess lord with these crazy like feather armor pieces. And that one is actually for a company for one of their shows, which also got put on hold because of the pandemic. And then I have a project, a big, huge project that I'm working on that I'm not allowed to talk about, but it's going to be amazing. I'm really, really excited about it, and I've done research for it for like the past year. So
Nice.
that's what I'm working on.
I'm looking forward to seeing these. That makes me think too, has how you approach cosplays changed from the pandemic? Like I know for me personally, I haven't built anything in the past years because I usually will build them depending on which con I'm going to next. But I know there's a lot of people that have done more like, makeup cosplays or closet cosplays. So has any of that changed since you've been at home or haven't had as many cons to go to? Do you make any more or less cosplays, or how's that changed, if it has?
Uh,
For me, it's definitely changed. Sorry, Lovey.
no, so
I haven't really done a whole lot. I've done some makeup costume looks, which I hadn't really dabbled in before, and I've been having fun doing that. But as far as actually making stuff, it was kind of a nice break for me because I was really, really going hard all the time, and I was getting a bit burnt out. So the year-long break has been really, really nice. But also toward the end, I've been itching to get back into it. So I'm like extra chomping at the bit to get to a con and make stuff again.
Nice. Lovey.
I wouldn't necessarily say that the pandemic necessarily changed how I approached and how often I was doing cosplays, because right before the pandemic hit, I actually got into a major car accident towards the end of 2019. So I ended up being out of commission throughout the whole pandemic year anyway. It did, however, make me kind of reassess how I was going about creating my cosplays. So it did make me more geared to try and start making them myself. So I changed employers in between all this time. So before, I used to have a lot more disposable income based on the job that I was doing. So I preferred to invest in others in the community. So I met a lot of really talented people, and that's one thing I like to do, is I like to invest in others and kind of share their work and promote them, because even though I'm getting promotion in the suit, at the same time I'm bringing business and attention to them as well, and we're kind of helping each other. But more recently, I've been trying to make suits of my own. I have another project that I bought some fabric for recently that I'm going to try and build the whole suit by myself.
I think for myself, and again speaking for my wife, our thing hasn't changed. We've still been trying to come up with concepts and stuff for cons, but I think more for myself, I've been focusing more on my photography because I told a lot of my cosplaying friends that while we aren't going to cons, this is the perfect time to take to get those costumes, go on a location somewhere, and get some good photos out. Because I have a lot of friends that have built new costumes. They were waiting for cons. We weren't sure when they were coming back. I said, well, look, I'm your guy. If you need some photographs shot of your costume, let's go out and do this. Friend of mine, Corey Morgan, who does Captain America, he and his daughter, we did a location shoot in DC. A couple of friends of mine, we actually have done stuff behind my home. One of my friends who wanted to do a snow queen, we literally waited till one day, like maybe 2 days before, like, look, it's snowing. Get over here in your costume. I don't have to Photoshop nothing because it's really snowing. So we got that done. And then my biggest accomplishment this year was another one of my associates. We wound up getting featured in Men's Health magazine. They reached out to him a couple of months ago. They reached out to me and got some of the photos. It went out in the May issue, so I can now say I'm internationally published in a mainstream magazine, and I think that's big for the cosplay community because we're mainstream. We're now mainstream. We're featured in a space that we've not really been featured in before.
I know we started talking about how we make cosplays, like how you make it your own, kind of the twist that you want to put on it. Is there like a specific lens that you use to make it your own? Like for me, I like to bring characters to Hogwarts. So like I've done a Darth Vader as a Hogwarts student and Kakashi from Naruto as a Hogwarts student. So are there ways that you like to make your cosplay like specifically yours?
I think the simplest way for us, because I've done several costumes like that. Sometimes it's just to kind of look to see what everyone else is doing or has done and do the opposite. I, and I think for me, like for my particular Superman costume, I actually got some inspiration from not only the movie itself, but some of my action figures. Because I wanted a different spin. I wanted to be something a little bit different than just a guy in a suit. Especially since honestly, I don't have that same kind of physicality as some people do. So, me and my wife we talked about it, and then like, hey, armored version would be cool. So we did that. But yeah, it's like sometimes you just kind of you get inspiration from the smallest things.
Yeah. So last question for this section, and we're going to move into a different topic. So you just talked about at the beginning kind of what you were making cosplays out of, duct tape and pot glue and things like that. How is your like your skills or your techniques changed since you started cosplaying? Or have you learned any new skills? Like for me, I still can't sew as long as I've been cosplaying. I will hot glue thing, or else to sew it for me. So, has how's that changed for you guys? Have you learned anything, any new techniques that you started using?
So it's funny you say that you don't know how to sew because I'm now learning how to sew. Uh, Initially, the only thing that I could probably do was I could sew up a rip, I could sew up a seam, and then sew on a button. That was about it. Now I'm actually learning how to put sleeves and legs together. They're still a little off, sometimes, my arms be like this, but it's a work in progress. I spend a lot of time watching YouTube tutorials. I buy a lot of really cheap fabric that's very inexpensive for doing test and dummy suits. So that way I can figure out getting my templates and everything right. And then once I finally nail it, at that point I'll have my template and then I can use the good fabric.
Becca, how's it going for you? Are you still duct taping?
Um, yeah, actually, I mean, duct tape is an amazing material. You can make literally anything out of it. So I will never knock duct tape. However, my my costuming skills have kind of, moved up from just using duct tape, and I can now sew proudly. My first sewing project, because I couldn't even sew a straight line. I just picked like the most complicated, beautiful costume I could find, and just said, this probably will teach me all of the things I would need to get me started. And it did. So I made a corset and this big, huge, large ruffle skirt. And I was working with horsehair and all kinds of stuff. And it taught me a bunch of stuff about sewing. And that was years ago. So since then, I can pattern and sew a bunch of things. I mean, I'm always going to be learning and getting better at things, but sewing skills have improved, and now I work with thermoplastics and casting materials and resins and foam, and I teach classes on working with thermoplastics in Manhattan. So I think it's given me a great opportunity to learn new skills and use a plethora of different materials, and then give back by teaching other people how to use those materials.
So, One question from the chat: how often do you change your character? And whether that's like per con or just like I guess per year. Also, how often do you change or make new characters?
Wow. It's hard to say. It depends sometimes. I mean, and I can't speak for everybody, but there are people out there that might create like 2 or 3 characters a year. And you got some out there that might create a character based on whatever's popular or whatever movie's coming out. You got some folks that, they just get inspired. So I think for a lot of cosplayers, everybody has a different timetable on like, well, hey, what character am I going to kick out? I know for my wife and myself, because, we're slowing down a bit, because we're into other things. We might put together something per year. Like I'm sitting, I'm already planning for next year, but I have absolutely no idea what I want to do yet.
That's fair. So moving into the next section, we wanted to talk about a little bit of what kind of can go wrong within cosplays and specifically with being a Black cosplayer. So for one, do you feel specific pressure or need to like prioritize cosplaying Black characters over any other characters that you may be into? Or is that how does that factor in?
Oh boy.
Okay, so I'll start on this one. Now, being, like I said, being officially new to the cosplay community, I'm still a baby. I'm only 4 years in at this point. One of the things that I have noticed is when speaking with others, people love to suggest characters they would love to see you play. But, and excuse my French when I say this, when people talk to me, most of the time they'll be like, "Oh man, you should do Static Shock. You should do Blade, this, that, and the other." And every single character they name are a Black cosplayer. Sorry, are a Black character in whatever the comic or the story is. And what I really hear out of it, and I know it may be my interpretation of it, but the fact that it's so frequent and you never hear anything else, all I hear is, and excuse my French, is, "Hey, you should dress up like this other in the comics." Like, that's what I hear, and it's unfortunate that it's like that. It shouldn't be. And then you get situations where if you do decide to dress up as a character who is not normally the race that you are, you get, "Oh, well, that character is not normally this," or "You don't do this character well." Even if the costume is fantastic, they will still downplay your cosplay just simply because you don't represent the race of the character who they originally were. And they do the same thing with gender sometimes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's it.
The amount of times that I've walked around in my Kakashi and people are like, "Oh, that's a great storm." I'm like, that's no.
That's not the story. No. No.
Yeah.
Oh man. If I can make money off of every time somebody said, "Hey, are you the Black version of Superman? Are you the Black version of this character? Are you the Black?" We would be rich. We would be rich beyond depth. And let me tell you all, quiet as kept. When a lot of people started seeing the promos for New York Comic Con come out, and we were on there, ooh, there were a lot of rumblings. There were a lot of rumblings that came back at us because it's like, okay, well, Superman's not supposed to be Black. Wonder Woman's not supposed to be Black. Well, why are they using and it's like what Lovey said is like people expect us to be these characters, but then when you step outside and do something else, then you can't do this, or you're doing something that's outside of the norm that people are not used to, and it's appropriating a character, or it's pandering, and a lot of people tend to forget we're living in a society now when it comes to everything geekdom. There's an audience for everybody. That money is green, and everybody has that money that they're going to spend. And let's face facts, if you're not going to cater or give, deference to somebody that wants to be a part of it and everything, then you're gatekeeping. Plain and simple.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Side.
I also,
Go ahead, Becca.
in in addition to all of that, which is all of that, um, I personally, and I also have friends who have like made noticeable steps to stay away from a certain character just so that you wouldn't be pigeonholed into that character. Like, I love Storm so much, but I didn't cosplay her for years because I just didn't want to be pigeonholed there. So I stayed away from her for a long time, and then I just thought, like, screw it, I'm gonna do it one day, and I did. And I adore that costume so much, but she's not the only character like that, and I'm not the only one who's stayed away from certain characters because you don't want to only be able to do the black version of this, or only the black characters. So it's an interesting thing, and people always have something to say no matter what.
Amen.
Lovey, you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say the side note. Those promotion photos for what was that, 2018? Oh my God, they were beautiful.
They were.
Colin did a great job. I was so happy with Colin's
Yeah,
work.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Colin is
Every
amazing.
on those posters were absolutely fantastic. They were so nice. I literally ran all the way from Philadelphia into New York just to go get some pictures with them.
We drove up from Baltimore for the same thing. We took an entire weekend hunting the subways. We found them.
Yep.
That's how fun it was. I mean, see, and a large part of this too, and I'm getting off topic a tiny bit, but a large part of this is you do have a lot of people that get into cosplay and they want to do it for fame. And a lot of them don't realize sometimes too, a large part of getting into this is you have to treat people right. You have to treat people a certain way to have those opportunities open. Plus you have to work. You have to work. And when you work hard and you work well, those opportunities will come. Because love you may have only been doing this for 4 years. You got a lot of time to go. There are a lot of opportunities that are going to come to you. So don't think of yourself as a baby because you're grown. You're a grown person. And the beauty of all this is when you do this as cosplay, you get what you give.
Yeah.
That's true.
Um, Veering slightly off of cosplay, how have you guys? Do you have any thoughts on the live action castings that you see with like different characters that are maybe played by people who are not of the same background as those characters? Do you have any thoughts on kind of how they're, one, if they should have been casted this way at all, but two, kind of how that portrayal ends up being received by others?
Mm, I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence, especially when you look at something like the Ten Rings. If that movie had been whitewashed, that would have been very bad because if you think about it, the origins of the characters and where they come from, and there's no real true representation of the history behind what those characters were written for. In situations like that, I'm usually like, yeah, they could have done better and given opportunities to people of that nationality. And then in some cases, it's not that big of a deal.
That's fair. Becca, Joe, you guys have thoughts?
um yeah, I am also kind of on the fence depending on the character. It's it's really hard. Like, for instance, Little Mermaid, they cast, I can't remember the actress's name, but she's so cute. They're
Yeah.
like twin sisters, and yeah, yeah. She's black, and of course, like, people were uproar about it. But something like that, to take a character that doesn't exist historically, it's completely a fairy tale made up character, recasting her into like a new generation, a new look, I think was amazing. There also recently was a casting of, I hope I don't get flack for saying this, but a character for, what is her name? Anne Bolin. There's a series on
Yeah,
BBC,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
The art.
And they cast a black, yeah, they cast
Yeah.
a black actress as Anne Boleyn, which I I just like personally didn't find that I liked the way that that felt, because like she's a historical character, like she's a real person that
she's a real
existed,
person. Yeah,
and yeah, you wouldn't want to change her. You can't change her skin color because she actually existed. Um, you would never do that the other way around. So something like that, that's real historical, I take issue with. But if it's something that is made up, that comes from somebody's head, that's a fairy tale, or you know whatever character that didn't exist, I think that recasting those characters, which have been done, they did with Valkyrie, like a number of other characters, I think is wonderful, because things have been white for so long that it's time for change, and it's time to make our characters look like how our world looks, which is much more colorful.
and I think to add on to that, because I agree with what everyone said, but I think sadly enough, especially with the internet being what it is nowadays, it's kind of sad to see so many people use the internet to hide behind, to spew their toxic behavior when these castings occur, and you get so many people that get upset because a character looks vastly different than what they should be based on their race. And there are a lot of people out there, they won't say it out loud, but they go to a 4chan or whatever forum that they're in, and they just spew all kinds of hate and nastiness. And it's like, but for what? It's like, things have been monochrome for so long. And there's a piece for everybody. Just like Rebecca said, there's a piece out there for everybody because it represents the world. But yeah, there have been misses as well. I mean, I could just simply say Ghost in the Shell and stop there. Through gods of Egypt and stop there. We know that there have been misses, and I mean, remember, we all got to remember that for so long, Hollywood believed that if you put out a movie with a black cast or a multiracial cast or a female lead, it's not going to make any money. And then Star Wars: The Force Awakens happened, Black Panther happened, Aquaman happened, and Wonder Woman happened, and they are the highest grossing movies now. So now you don't have that argument to hide behind now that, people who look different than what we've seen can't make you money.
All right.
Exactly.
The last question in this section, have you ever second guessed doing a character based on any like negative feedback you might have heard from others, or from a time that you might have cosplayed before and maybe that made you not want to put it on again? But how have you ever second guessed that before?
Yeah, but it wasn't really so much due to a racial thing. It was more so due to body image. So I dress up sometimes as Miles Morales Spider-Man, and we all know that the Spider-Man suits are pretty tight. And I was eating a lot of ice cream at the time, so this packing on the stomach there, and just people can definitely get under your skin sometimes about what you look like, not just your skin but also your body size and things of that nature. And for a while there, I didn't cosplay that costume for a good bit until I'd been in the gym for a while.
I guess that I equate to having a harder shell from living in New York, because I don't really care if people don't like the way I'm portraying a character. If I like a character and I'm really passionate about it, I'm gonna freaking do it. And there's not really much that will stop me. I've I haven't really ever second guessed doing a certain character or continuing to do a character due to anything anybody said. But also maybe, as Lovie said, maybe because I wasn't quite as confident in the way I looked at the time. So that has kept me from doing some characters. But as far as like people not liking the way I represented Wonder Woman or something, which is a character I cosplay very often, no, I will 100% do it if I want to do it.
As you should. So one question from the chat. Do you ever design costumes that will completely cover you so you don't know what people look like? And is that the purpose of why you've done that cosplay?
Completely cover like from head to toe, or
Yeah, like a Daft Punk.
oh, okay.
I'm like that.
I think speaking for myself, I have not, simply because I got a lot of this, and I haven't yet done any costumes that to where I would have been helmeted, because trying to put all this up somewhere and then put something on is very uncomfortable. So the majority of the costumes that I decide to do has to have something where I can leave my hair exposed, just simply for comfort.
Perfectly fair. I've worn helmets before. They're not that fun.
No.
I did an Enfys Nest for Star Wars Celebration, and I could see exactly nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Make
And
it
actually,
very
kind of come back to a question about people telling you what you should cosplay. I've had so many people that say, "Well, you should do Predator, and you should do the mask, and you should do this." One of my friends that suggested it one time, like, "Yeah, let me borrow this mask that you're wearing right now." And I put that mask on. I said, "Yeah, I can't see, so no, I can't do this character unless they make a mask where I can see out of."
Jumping in on the fully costumed look, not for myself, but my fiance, who's also been cosplaying alongside me for the last 10 years. He's actually Indonesian, and many of his costumes are fully masked. And he does that because he has gotten so much flack and negativity about him being a certain character that he just feels more comfortable not showing his face and being behind a mask. So that's, he always has fun, and his costumes are amazing and look great, but it's unfortunate that he's had to made to feel like that he needs to be behind a mask because of the comments that he gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I never felt that I had to be behind a mask. I have three of my cosplays are mask characters. Um, Most of the time, I want to take the mask off. But no, I never necessarily had any feeling that I had to be behind the mask due to any problems or anything like that. It's more so just that's the character that I chose, and they just so happen to be a mask character.
Yep. So moving into the next section, this is more general. So one, do you think, I think we were talking about how bodies affect, your body type might affect your cosplay. Do you think that should matter in choosing what you cosplay, or what anyone should cosplay, what a body type is?
I don't think that it should affect the character that you portray, but there are conversations that have been out and about this sort of thing. And here's why. So a good example is a couple years ago, I did a photo shoot with a friend of mine in New York, and it's his production. Him and a couple of partners got together and they invested money to produce the content that they wanted to produce. So in their casting for the shoot, they were seeking people who were more authentic and quality in their costumes for said shoot. So it makes sense in that standpoint for them to turn down others that may not necessarily have the body style of that particular character, because that at that point that is a business production. That is not just people getting together as cosplay and having fun and just taking a bunch of photos. He's actually producing content for the purpose of promoting whatever it is he's promoting. So in that argument, I can completely understand why you would say no. But beyond that, I don't think there should be any restrictions. That regardless of how small or how large you are, you should be able to cosplay whoever you want.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that as well, yeah. Also, age as well, because granted, I'm in my 50s, and I've had people that have said, well, are you sure you want to cosplay that character, because of your age? And I'm like, well, why not? Because I feel like, again, just like Lovey said, whatever, as long as it's not, based on a business issue, whatever you're doing at a con, I don't care how short, how wide, how tall, how small you are. If you feel like you're confident to pull that character off, you do that character. What I will say, what I will say is, you also, however, bear the responsibility of how you treat people that come at you a certain way, regarding a costume that you wear. Because I look at it like this, there are lasting impressions that we make when we meet people. And yes, we know that sometimes when we go to a con, the cons are a certain environment where, let's be frank, there are certain people that just don't know how to act. But that doesn't mean we have to give in to that and come down to their level. Because granted, yeah, there are people out there that, they may be a certain height, they may be a certain size, they have never seen anyone cosplay that character, but because they've seen you in that costume and they identify with something that you do, then they want to do that character. But if they see you cursing somebody out, then the first thing that they're going to think is this what I have to go through in order to cosplay? And yes, there are plus size women out there that cosplay that have gotten a lot of attention. There are short people that have gotten a lot of attention. And I said this all the way back at the beginning. You have people who have certain disabilities who have gotten a lot of attention because of the cosplays that they do. But they also realize that, they have a certain responsibility for being able to deal with certain situations with people that, quite frankly, don't know how to come out of their mouth and treat us with the same respect that they will want in return.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hmm. Yeah, I feel the same. I don't really have anything to add. I think that anybody should be able to cosplay whatever they want, and as long as you're covered and everything is family friendly at the convention, then you should be able to do it however you want. And of course, there will be people who don't know how to act and will come up to you, and Jace is right. It's a responsibility to know that if once you're a cosplayer and you put a costume on, you you kind of become something that I feel like people think they have some sort of ownership over. So you, as long as you're in the costume, it's kind of like you have to be on all the time. I've had like a few instances where I was at a convention and I was really, really tired, and it was like the end of the day and the last day, and I just didn't want to have my picture taken, and I turned away when somebody asked for a picture, and then like a month later I was online at on the convention's website or Facebook page, and somebody was like, "This Wonder Woman was a huge bitch," and I was like, because I literally was in such pain and didn't want a photo. So you gotta know how to be on all the time, I guess.
Or when you're eating lunch and they can clearly see you
Yeah.
putting food in your mouth.
Midnight.
Midnight. Hey man, can I get a photo, bro?
You know, they
Really, really, dude. Can you
like
give me a few
that
minutes?
moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving into the next section is more general. So, what advice would you have given yourself or would you give yourself now as a person that was just starting out and what you've learned today? What would you tell your 10 year from now self, or the 4 years for you, Lovie?
Get a handler. Get
That's
a
a
Yes.
handler.
really good one.
Yes.
That's probably the best advice I could have given anybody. Because my first year, I didn't do like everyone, like a lot of people usually do when they first cosplay. They usually go to a smaller convention. My first con was New York Comic Con, so
Oh,
I went
Me too.
head, head first. So I was in that, and you know how bulky that first suit was. It was man, it was difficult to move around. I was struggling to get things, but it was funny because I'm very much a bit of a survivalist, a little bit of a MacGyver. So I had a ton of Velcro, and I Velcroed together like this little pouch so I could slide my phone and my wallet and everything in. I was slick with it, but it was not easy.
mhm.
And Velcro will easily fail you sometimes.
Ooh. I got two things, and it's real quick. The first one is always check your costume before you go, because no matter how well you think it holds up, your costume is fine until you hit the con floor. That kind of piggybacks on what Lovey said. It's fine until it's the con floor. But if you are brave enough to do something like New York Comic Con as your very first con, and you're going to be there like 2 or 3 days, I always say take one of those days and be out of costume. And the reason being
Hmm.
is this: what I found, especially since our costumes are a bit elaborate, everybody wants to take your picture. You'll find yourself standing someplace, and then next thing you know, everyone is taking your photos, and you don't want to move, or you can't move, or you're walking along, you're at a vendor's table, and everyone's wanting to take your picture in the middle of the vendor's floor, so you don't quite see everything. So if you're going to a con and you want to see the entire con floor, you just take a day, go in regular clothes. That way you can just walk around incognito, get everything that you got to get, see everything that you got to see. Because the next couple of days when you're in costume, nah, you're not going to see everything. I guarantee it.
There's
That is
a
absolutely
I know
right.
Yeah.
I did
You might not make it to the bathroom. I'm just saying.
all of that.
So true.
Becca, what would you tell your younger cosplay self?
Um, I would definitely have given myself a handler right off the bat for sure. You need to have somebody to help hold things, but also to like kind of like help protect you and be security, because people can get really aggressive, and like especially as a female, there's been some times where it gets it's very stressful. And also for me, also because for as a female, shoes, the amount of uncomfortable shoes that I have put up with in the last 10 years, probably for you guys too, is ridiculous. And my
Mm-hmm.
knees are just ruined at this point. So I have gone away from sacrificing myself. And I would have just said, maybe bring an extra pair of shoes and wear the cool shoes that go with for an hour or 2 hours, and then put on some more comfortable shoes that also go with the costume, or pick some lower heels. And also water hydration is really important. I've definitely gone to, especially near Comic Con, where you get stuck on the floor and you can't move. I've gone and not had a single sip of water all day long, and then just felt so drained and dead at the end of the day. So I would have told myself to make sure I have a handler with some water and some comfortable shoes aside.
Yes, no, totally hear you on all of those. I'm definitely also one that I refuse to put heels on now for cons. I will find sneakers that match. I will paint them, do whatever needs to be done to make it match the costume.
Yeah,
And
the
then
shoe pain is real.
for real. And then they were asking in the chat what a handler does, or who what a handler is. And Fallon started to answer this, but yes, a handler is usually someone who usually like a friend or someone you could pay someone also to be a handler for you. But they're a person who usually will not be in cosplay, or just is much more comfortable than you are, and they will kind of handle everything that you need. They'll hold your wings or any other part of your costume that you need. If you need to go to the bathroom, or something is getting too heavy, they help you put your cosplay on to help you take it off. Help you. They might hold your bags as you are going to do a photo shoot, or if someone is wants to take a photo of you, they'll hold your things while you can go and do that. They make sure you've eaten and help you stay hydrated. Every so often I kind of go like the opposite route with staying hydrated. Like I feel like I'm kind of like prepping for surgery when it comes to going to cons, because the line for the bathroom is always ridiculous. So I'm like, I'm just gonna not drink anything.
Yes.
And I want
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next question, as we're starting to like come out of quarantine life, are you excited to come back to cons? Are you comfortable going back to cons this year? And then I know like some people, me included, are starting to think about, if I do cons this year, doing a cosplay with a mask, or like integrating a mask into that cosplay. So if you're going to cons, like what's your approach going to be? Go ahead, Jaden.
Honestly, initially, I wanted to do. Remember the plague doctors back in the day with the long beaks? I really wanted to do one, but I'm not. I'm not. But my approach right now is I'm not jumping in with 2 feet to do everything. I'm taking my time. I'm trying to like test and see like what are some of these cons doing, because there are a couple of cons that are like doing full opens, and they're trying to guarantee everybody, well, yeah, you're only coming in if you're vaccinated, and I don't trust everybody. I can't sit up there and trust that everybody that is at the show is vaccinated. So there are a lot of things I don't have a problem with avoiding, because my philosophy has been it'll be there next year. So I might do a few, others I might do for a day, and then some of them I might skip altogether, because if they're as successful as they've always been, they'll be there next year, and I want to guarantee that I'll be there next year, because I won't get COVID,
Mhm.
vaccinated or not.
Totally fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just noticed that it's 1:58 and there's so many more questions that are on. So what I'm going to do is a like lightning round. So I'm going to ask each of the questions to someone specific, and then try to get through all of the questions if we can. So Lovie, is the assumption of being on and like having to keep up the that suit, like is it something is that asking too much? Do you feel, or do you feel like you have to do you feel like pro or semi-pro when you're in a costume, or do you feel like you have to be always on?
So I don't necessarily feel like I have to be always on, but I usually take everything with a professional approach, which is how I do life. So when I'm in cosplay, I'm very much all about my character, regardless of whether I'm taking a photo, whether I'm interacting with a child, whether I'm having a conversation with someone who's a vendor or otherwise. Always keep it professional, do what I have to do, and keep it moving. Now, once it comes to a point to where I have to be off, I learned after my second year that I just have to be firm but respectful and say, all right, hey, I need to take can I get a picture real quick? I'm sorry, but I need to take a break. You can catch me when I come back on the floor. I gotta go, and keep moving. And
Exactly.
just you can't really feel bad about it.
So Becca, what would your favorite superpower be? Or if you could have a superpower, what would you want it to be?
The ability to speak to animals. I know, not like the most exciting superpower for everybody, but I love animals so much, and I would love to be able to communicate with them and know what they're thinking and be um, Beastmaster.
So,
I'm here for it.
Dreda, what was your favorite convention? It doesn't have to be a Repop one. What's your favorite convention that you have so far or to date?
Um, Baltimore Comic Con, because going to Baltimore Comic Con for me is like going home, because I see so many of my old friends, including like creators and authors, writers. You know, me and my wife, we're pretty much known by first name now when we go to this place. New York, of course, because New York is like the show. It's like the last big show of the year. So that's my second favorite. Third favorite is MagFest and KatsuCon, because those are the first two cons in this area of the year, and both of them are like big parties, and that's when everybody's just coming back from quote unquote being on winter break.
Dope. Lovey, since you have on the anime hoodie, what's your favorite comic, favorite anime or manga?
Oh my gosh. That's kind of tough. Look, I'm old school. I grew up on Dragon Ball, so I'm not even gonna front. Dragon Ball all the way. But I do love me some My Hero Academia, and I'm also a big fan of One Piece. Zoro, that's my guy.
Becca, what's your favorite material to work with?
That would be Warbler, thermoplastic, so I can make the biggest and baddest armor.
I'm just now getting to like learning Warbler. I started with Wonderflex and
Oh yeah, Wonderflex is terrible. I mean, it has its purposes, but Warbler is much better.
yeah. Dreda, what's your favorite cosplay you've done so far?
Oh, that would be Bishop, because if a friend of mine talked me into doing it, I didn't want to do it, but the reception I got for doing it after I did it was crazy, which is why my Instagram and Twitter is Bishop Cosplay.
Totally fair.
I'm a terrible human.
We're 2 minutes over, so I know a lot of people are needing to drop off. Thank you guys for everyone else for coming to listen to our panel. Thank you to the panelists for coming to speak and giving your thoughts. And then I'll pass it back over to the Repop.